Sudan's military leader Abdel Fattah Al-Burhan has declared the capital free after returning to the presidential palace in Khartoum. Burhan's forces have made major gains against the paramilitary rapid support forces in recent days. Earlier, they regained control of Khartoum's airport and a weapons manufacturing centre. The rapid support forces are fleeing the city. RSF fighters have been escaping on foot across a bridge south of Khartoum. The group has retreated from several neighborhoods in the capital as the army makes gains. The Sudanese army has been advancing in the capital in recent weeks, pushing back the RSF. On Friday, soldiers retook the presidential palace in Khartoum. The paramilitary group seized the palace when the conflict began in April 2023. A day later, the army announced it was in control of the central bank headquarters. Now it says it's retaken Khartoum International Airport, the main airport in the capital, and a weapons factory in Yarmouk, the biggest arms production site in Sudan. Well, our correspondent Heba Morgan is joining us on the phone from Khartoum. Heba, talk us through these pictures that we're seeing of Army Chief Abdel Fattah Al-Burhan walking victoriously through the presidential palace and the significance of the army retaking the capital.
Well, it is quite significant because just up until about a week or 10 days ago, that was not possible. The RSF were in control of the presidential palace. They had their forces in buildings around the palace itself and in government institutions around the presidential palace and in the heart of the capital, Khartoum. Now, the army was able to retake the palace on Friday and several other government institutions and other buildings in the coming days, wrapping it up on Wednesday with the airport and several other residential districts as well. And this is quite significant again because these are all areas that were once upon a time, just about 10 days ago, strongholds of the paramilitary rapid support forces. Their fighters were spread around these neighborhoods. Their fighters were spread around the presidential palace and in high buildings. They had snipers, making it very hard for the army to advance, especially during the first days of the conflict. The palace itself was one of the first institutions, one of the first places that the rapid support forces took control of on the first day of the conflict on April 15th, 2023. So the fact that before reaching the second anniversary of the conflict, the army was able to gain control of it. And after heavy battles, it is quite significant for the army. It shows that they have gained progress in the capital and that they now have the upper hand here in Khartoum, even if there are still parts of the capital, especially in South Omdurman and the western parts of Omdurman, where there are still RSF forces. Despite the fact that they are still present, when you look at the bigger picture when it comes to the capital, it's clear that the army has control of most of it, and that's why they believe that they now have full control of Khartoum and have declared it free.
And Heba, the Sudanese army has been on an offensive from about September of last year, hasn't it? But how is it that they've been able to finally take back control of Khartoum from the RSF, especially given, as you've said, that this was the RSF took control of the presidential palace on the first day of the war in April 2023. They focused the first 6 months of the war. They were so heavily focused on Khartoum. How has the army been able to do this?
Well, the army started its offensive in September last year in the capital, Khartoum, regaining control of some of the bridges that connected the city of Omdurman to Khartoum city and the Khartoum North to Khartoum city. Now, that gave them some kind of leverage over the rapid support forces in areas under their control. But we also saw army fighters taking control of Jazeera state, that's in central Sudan. By taking that state and taking other states such as Sinnar, they were able to advance south from the south into the capital to other areas, thus effectively laying siege to the RSF fighters, giving them no way to flee or no way to resupply their troops and reinforce their troops here in the capital, Khartoum. Now, what the army has done is it has yet to take control of Jebel Aulia bridge, and that's a bridge in the southern part of the capital, Khartoum, in the southwestern part of the capital, Khartoum. They have not taken control of that bridge, and that's the bridge that the RSF is now using to leave the capital, to retreat from the capital, Khartoum. So with the siege that the army laid up from various directions as it advances towards the capital and eventually launching a full-scale offensive in the heart of the capital, retaking residential districts, forcing the RSF to withdraw from these areas and fighting with them in some other areas. Heavy battles that saw the use of heavy artillery, of drone strikes, and got direct fire confrontation. All of that led to the RSF eventually being weak to the point that they're now fleeing the capital on foot via the Jebel Aulia bridge.
So, Heba, can we then expect the next battle to be focused around this bridge, given its importance? It sounds like the only lifeline for the RSF fighters that are remaining in and around the capital to leave and to get to areas where they are still in control.
Well, we saw from the early hours of Wednesday and throughout the day on Wednesday, the army taking control of various districts in Jebel Aulia itself, taking control of the military airbase, Jumi military airbase, which was theirs and RSF took control of in December 2023. The army has made some progress when it comes to Jebel Aulia, and it's clear that what they're trying to do is take control of that bridge that the RSF is using, not to resupply it at the moment, because when you look at the number of troops of the RSF, or when you look at the areas of control of the army and you look at the areas of control of the RSF, they have no way to resupply themselves at the moment. That would take days potentially, if not weeks and months. But what the army has been doing since the early hours of Wednesday is gradually approaching Jebel Aulia Bridge to try to tighten the siege, so that what ends up happening is that those RSF fighters that are in the capital remain in the capital, and those outside find it very hard to enter.
And Heba, as well as those scenes that we're seeing from the presidential palace of the army chief marching with his soldiers in the palace with his fist up in the air, we've also seen some jubilant scenes elsewhere in Khartoum, people there very happy to no longer be under the control of the RSF because of the various roadblocks, because of the security checks that they had put in place in Khartoum when they were in control. Tell us about how people there are responding to this development.
Well, people have been responding the way they've been responding in various areas and various states and cities that the army have entered in the past few months. They have been receiving the army with celebrations, dancing with them, showing that they're happy that the army is there. And that's, of course, because the RSF has been limiting their freedom of movement, various checkpoints, lots of questioning, lots of interrogation. Many people who have been able to leave areas of RSF control have told Al Jazeera that life has become very hard, that getting basic necessities has been very hard because of shops being looted by the RSF. But there's also another factor here. Areas that were under the control of the RSF lack basic services. There are no running waters, no electricity, and no internet connection or telephone coverage, generally speaking, in those areas that were controlled by the rapid support forces. For those civilians, the presence of the army, the arrival of the army means that it's only a matter of time before these basic services are restored, before shops are open once again, before they can get back to some kind of normalcy that they've lost since the start of the conflict, especially during the days of the RSF being controlled.
So that is the situation and the hope in Khartoum. But what impact could the army retaking the capital have on the wider war, Heba? Because as we've been discussing, the RSF remains in control of other parts of Sudan, most notably Darfur in the west.
Well, the army has repeatedly been saying that if it does get full control of Khartoum, that does not mean that the battle is over, that they will work to liberate areas of Darfur that are currently under the paramilitary rapid support forces. And we have heard that statement repeatedly from the army chief, General Abdel Fattah Al-Burhan, that even if the battles do end in Khartoum, then the forces will be directed towards Darfur and towards Kordofan, where the RSF does have fighting forces there, and where they were able to just a few days ago take control of another town. So even if the army does get full control of Khartoum, that does not mean that the battle is over. What it means is that the scenes of the fighting and the confrontations between the RSF and the Sudanese army will be moving from the capital, Khartoum, and the cities in it towards the western parts of the country, areas that are under RSF control in Kordofan, in the southwest, and areas such as Darfur, where, with the exception of Al-Fashir, which is the last major army stronghold, the entirety is under RSF control.
Heba, thank you very much for that. That's our correspondent, Heba Morgan, joining us on the phone with all the latest developments from Sudan. Well, let's take a closer look at how the conflict started. In 2019, longtime leader Omar al-Bashir was ousted in a popular revolution, but 2 years later, the transitional civilian government was overthrown, leaving power in the hands of the military. Tensions escalated between Sudan's two most powerful generals, Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, that's the head of the armed forces, and Mohammed Hamdan Dagalo, commander of the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces, or RSF. A dispute about a plan to incorporate the RSF into the army led to confrontations in April 2023. Despite several attempts at a ceasefire, the conflict goes on. 12.5 million people have now been displaced.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.